Jama-ah has thrown its weight behind the recommendations of the Inspector General of Intelligence on the Intelligence Laws Amendment Bill. The Inspector General, Imtiaz Faze, proposes an overhaul of the intelligence law to strengthen the independence of the office. The draft bill and recommendations were presented in Parliament earlier this week. For more on this, we're joined by Jama-ah's President Ganief Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, thank you for your time this afternoon. What problems have you identified with this current legislation?
Thank you very much. Look, the current legislation does not meet the requirements of the Constitution to have independent civilian oversight over the intelligence structures. And as you know, that GILAP, that's the acronym for the bill, has proposed two new structures to replace the SSA. So there won't be independent civilian monitoring of intelligence, and the current legislation will also create silos, which resulted in the July 2021 unrest going undetected. So the legislation also creates bad morale among staffers because they don't have the right to strike, whereas the employer has the right to lock out. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the key issues with this legislation. And I am focusing on the presentation made by Imtiaz, that he was very concerned that he wasn't consulted when the legislation was drafted. And he's proposing nearly 30 amendments to the current legislation, because he is waving the flag for civilian oversight, because that is his constitutional mandate. That's the only reason he has been appointed as intelligence director. So that is the concerns we have, and he has, for example, indicated that he's got problems with monitoring, with review, with a section in the law about significant intelligence failure. He's got problems with unlawful activity, fair presentation, and then he also has issues with his independence. He can't even appoint a cleaner. So he doesn't have a budget. The minister appoints his staff. Now, how can you ask Wolf to be Skaapwachter?
Yeah.
He's supposed to look after monitor these intelligence services and do an annual report to the minister, highlighting all the non-compliance. And then the same body that he has to monitor and do oversight on behalf of the streets, on behalf of you and me, they drafted legislation to curb his independence, his autonomy, his powers, and they make him a lame duck.
Yeah. So the current legislation, as things stand now, what other concerns are there around the Inspector General's responsibilities and independence?
Look, he has raised the fact that, number one, he complained that he wasn't consulted. So the state law advisor that gave a certificate of constitutional muster to the bill, they indicated that they consulted everyone, and that he is satisfied that everyone has been consulted, and that the bill meets constitutional muster. But if this should go to the parliamentary committee that gives a certificate of constitutional muster, they won't give one because it doesn't comply with the Constitution. So I don't know, it looks like the state, with all due respect, like the state law advisor has been captured, and that the SSS has drafted the legislation in such a way that the IG Imtiaz cannot really do proper oversight and fulfill his mandate in terms of the Constitution.
Yeah. But how is it that the Inspector General of Intelligence has never really had the opportunity to present the proposals by the Inspector General of Intelligence proposals on this bill? Because that's the impression I got.
Yeah, look, the point is the ad hoc committee felt that we're not going to take the word of the state law advisor and everyone else. We're going to call in all the structures that were supposed to be consulted. So we called in the intelligence sector of the police, of the defense force, and they seem to have had no quarrels with the legislation. And we also called in the inspector, the intelligence general, Imtiaz, and then I put a direct question to him, have you been consulted in drafting this bill? Because you're now presenting this committee with 30 amendments to the bill. Normally, when a bill reaches an ad hoc committee or a portfolio committee of Parliament, it's a fait accompli that whatever in the bill will proceed, some minor changes. But 30 dramatic changes. I smelled a rat, and then he said, no, he wasn't consulted. And I could see the disappointment on his face. And the DA and the ANC tried to cover up for that. We are only 4 parties on this committee. Unfortunately, the other 10 political parties shows no interest in this intelligence legislation. And, the way things stand at the moment, as you know, we previously had another act, and that act largely entrenched the apartheid intelligence structures, and this is continuing, and we were hoping that this new bill will transform the intelligence structures from an apartheid regime to a democratic regime in terms of the constitution. And, the fact that that Imtiaz has identified, that he is being undermined, made a lame duck, shows that, they want to continue the intelligence structures that existed during apartheid. So we're very worried about torture. And I put a direct question to Imtiaz that is he satisfied that the legislation will prevent the torture that we experienced during apartheid. He indicated that that hasn't even crossed his mind because in terms of our constitution, there's no place for torture. But if you read media reports last week, there's a lot of allegations of torture in the police and in the defense force. And the head of the defense force came out in defense and said it's all nonsense. So that's why it's important for me as a lawmaker, as a legislator, this is our last chance to try and come up with legislation that will comply with the Constitution, because every attempt to have civilian oversight over the years and the 4 commissions that has been presented, it has all been ignored. But I don't think they can ignore the recommendations of the ad hoc committee that has now been established and has the support of the president. Yeah. So Jama-ah is very concerned with the fact that that Imtiaz hasn't been consulted, and now he's going to go on his knees to the ad hoc committee and ask them, please consider my up to 30 recommendations to make changes to this new bill. And, the way things work in Parliament, they don't hardly make any changes. They'll try and compromise here and there, but 30 major amendments, and I don't think we have the time to unpack each one of them because that requires at least half an hour each particular item we presented. But we have sight of it. He has put it in writing. And the chairman brushed off my concerns that we need to deal with immediately and said we must wait when we do clause by clause. And by that time, you find that it's a fait accompli that the legislation as it stands before us now will be accepted. Yeah. That's my concern.
When does the public consultation begin?
The public consultation begins on the 21st of January. So originally they only wanted to consult in 3 provinces, and Jama-ah objected vigorously. What about the other 6 provinces? Are they not part of South Africa? I know the Western Cape is not part of South Africa, but what about all the other provinces? And then after a lot of lobbying, they've agreed to increase it to 6 provinces. And the point was made that we don't have to consult in the rural areas. They're not interested in intelligence. So I said, well, do you think they are animals? They are human beings. They need to be consulted. So the consultation starts at Sunday the 21st. And we are going to Mashuna, local municipality.
Okay.
And then they're going to Limpopo, and then they're going to Gauteng on Friday, the 26th of January. Then we're also going to Sandton. We must consult the whites, so they're going to Sandton. And then they're going to Mpumalanga on the Tuesday, the 30th. And KZN on Wednesday, the 31st, in the Pongola local municipality. They're not going in Kanla because, President Zuma is there. And then Friday, the 2nd, they're going to Maritzburg. And in Durban, Saturday, the 3rd. And then they're going to the Western Cape on Tuesday, the 13th, in George, and in Cape Town on the 15th.
Mm-hmm. What do you plan to do as Jama-ah to lobby support for the amendment?
Look, we have 1 seat in Parliament. There are 400 seats. 10 of the political parties are not interested in this. I don't know, what are we going to do to try and make sure that South Africa's intelligence services transform from a present apartheid ethos to one in terms of the Constitution. So Jama-ah is thinking of trying to lobby NGOs to fund a seminar or more seminars outside these public hearings so that the public can then be mobilized to make strong representations to this ad hoc committee. Because I'm telling you now, they're going to accept this bill as it is, and the 30 amendments that Imtiaz wants will be ignored.
Thank you for making time for us, Ganief Hendricks, the president of Jama-ah.